Welcome back to the panel discussion, Navigating the Future of Identity Management at DoD, sponsored by Okta on Federal News Network. My guests today again are Sabrina Lee, the Director of DoD Programs at Okta, Chris Joseph, Acting Deputy Director for the Office of the Chief Information Officer, Cybersecurity Director at the Army, Jason Howe, A1 Chief Information Officer and Deputy Director of Plans and Integration at Headquarters U.S. Air Force, and Drew Malloy, Technical Director of the Cybersecurity and Analytics Directorate at the Defense Information Systems Agency. I'm your moderator, Justin Doubleday. And to pick back up on the conversation, many folks have mentioned the CAC card, the Common Access Card, how DoD can move beyond or in addition to that for more modern solutions. You know, Chris, how do you see DoD kind of building off of the CAC card?
Okay. So there's been a lot of conversation about the CAC card, Common Access Card, and has it served its usefulness? Is it time for it to sunset? Do we replace it with something different? I will say that the CAC does serve a purpose. There's a lot that goes into, as far as identity vetting and proofing, that's very useful today, and I think will continue to be needed in the future. I think as we continue our discussion about it, we will explore other mechanisms such as multi-factor authentication using tokens, for example, like the YubiKey. The Army currently has a mobile Connect app that can be used as well, kind of circling back to one of our earlier discussion on BYOD. So we've been able to integrate that with our BYOD solution. So there's a lot behind the CAC, so I just want to stress that. I don't think it's going to be an overnight change where the CAC goes away, but we need to continue exploring other avenues for connections.
Really quickly, as a follow-up, can you share what the Army is learning so far in its space with the the mobile Connect app and other MFA?
Sure. They've been very successful. The mobile app is available for folks to download and use their device as a second authentication factor, and more. As I mentioned, as far as the BYOD, there's been some pilots that's been done, and they've worked with the mobile app capability, and it's been extremely well received and successful, and will be part of the future deployment going forward.
Got it. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
And Drew, I have to go out to you. Your boss, DISA Director, Lieutenant General Robert Skinner. He said he wants to kill the CAC card. It's headline grabbing. I think the quote, though, is that he wants to kill the CAC as the primary authentication mechanism for the department. How is DISA exploring that potential future?
Yeah, so there are definitely challenges there, right? I think right now the CAC is still, the primary form factor that we use, but understandably, folks do not like the form factor. They don't like all the process tied around it, all the paperwork. It being tied to physical office locations and how those are provisioned to you, and how it's all tied to your contract. When a contract rolls over, you got to renew all of your CAC cards. So there's and it's not really widely recognized on the commercial side, right? It's really tied to our PKI backend, which as was said, there's a lot of identity verification and proofing that's done as part of that, but it's really a government solution to how this is done. So moving forward, we want to give some flexibility in how we provision users and what multi-factor authentication they can provide, be it hardware tokens, be it software-based authentication mechanisms, things of that nature, and then using that in order to do access control and granular access control around what you are allowed access to if you come in using, say, a username and password and a one-time passcode, as opposed to your CAC-based identity. So I don't think the CAC is going away anytime soon. It's how you get on base. It's how you get into your building in a lot of cases. It's used as a government ID. So that form factor is really going to be there, and it's something that we utilize. The problem with moving to other means of authentication is that there isn't that rigid process in the background as far as how do you provision? Do you just give someone a whole box full of YubiKeys and say, just give those out to whoever you feel needs access, and then how do we revoke that? Once you move on to a different program or a different contract, how do we maintain positive control of those different tokens? Those are all really challenging problems to solve that come as part of what we do with the CAC card issuance process. So those are things that we need to have solutions for if we want to scale this. Right now, we do have some pilot efforts for multi-factor authentication using hardware tokens, using software-based authentication mechanisms, and that was something that we had to put in place because, like we said, that the variety of the user community that we have to support is so vast there that a CAC card isn't really applicable all the time. So how do we have flexibility in our access control mechanisms to make sure that we can support such a broad user community that the entire DoD has to support on a daily basis?
Got it. And just as a quick follow-up, what are some of those pilot efforts? How are they coming together, and how can people learn more?
Yeah, so a lot of our pilot efforts have been around kind of our Office 365 environment and looking at, the big use case is really around BYOAD, as far as bringing different form factors and different devices that are not government managed devices, and how do we do authentication from those devices in order to get access to your Microsoft Office 365 environment? And once you have a different authentication mechanism, do we give full access to everything within your Office 365 environment? Do we limit it to read-only applications, or being able to access things like your webmail and not the entire suite that you usually get access from? Or Teams, Teams environments. How do we do collaboration with someone coming from a BYOAD device?
Sabrina, I just wanted to turn to you, being in industry. What is industry talking about in this space? Obviously, DoD has these increased security requirements that a lot of other organizations don't really have to worry quite as much about. What are you guys thinking about?
Makes my job fun. Any commercial company who wants to do business with the DoD and support the DoD mission has to support the CAC card, right? So at the end of the day, we know that. We support the CAC card, absolutely. But really our focus and what we can offer to the DoD, I go back to what I said earlier, involves running on open standards. So being able to support the CAC population, to integrate with services like the Global Federated User Directory, and be a federated identity provider to service the non-CAC card community is another value add that industry partners can provide. And then just using those open standards. So things like the WebAuthn stack, right? Which is like which can leverage things like your Face ID on your phone or your Touch ID on your laptop. Those are things that industry solutions can bring to the table because we're all based on WebAuthn. Or FIDO2, right? I think you mentioned the YubiKey, RSA tokens, things like that, being able to support that, all of those FIDO2 type protocols. Offering apps for the user's phone. You look at like a Google Authenticator, Okta Verify, those types of apps, provide push notifications or one-time passcodes, things that can be leveraged in addition to the CAC. Because I agree, I don't think you're going to just replace the CAC overnight, but you can complement the CAC and have a service that says, okay, this capability services the CAC population and it integrates and interoperates with this service that services the non-CAC population. So just focusing on those open standards is really important. And also making sure that you use those standards to enable a multi-cloud experience. So those same users who are logging into O365 on Microsoft's cloud might be logging into a GOTS solution on the AWS cloud, or their Gov Cloud, or Salesforce on AWS, or ServiceNow, or any other SaaS provider. So being able to use open standards to say the same user with the same identity can log in and have a seamless login experience to all those places, whether it's with the CAC or the non-CAC authentication method.
Got it. And I want to get back to that standards conversation, but first I wanted to go out to Jason and just ask him about how he's thinking about this CAC and beyond CAC, or on top of CAC, for specifically for his challenges, which entail, like you mentioned, not just military personnel, veterans and their families, and those types of users.
Yeah, so I think this is a critical discussion from two aspects. And one is security. I guess as a system owner, a portfolio owner, I think of risk management with ICAM in terms of how much information can I use to make an authentication decision. So the days of CAC binary decisions, yes or no, if you have it, you're in, otherwise you're out, those have to be gone. And we need to help all of our system owners understand this new commercial world order where we can accept CAC as a token, but we should probably think long and hard about other information that can drive an authentication decision. That would raise our security level, in my mind, much quicker than continuing to drive some subset of CAC or PKI. And for us, with our commercial ICAM solution, we have found we have over 10 cloud capabilities today. Not all work out of the box with CAC. We had to make adjustments. So our solution today allows CAC, but it helps us make more comprehensive user authentication decisions to raise the security bar. And I think the other thing we can't lose sight of is the user experience. I think a lot of people push back on CAC because it drastically limits what I, as a system owner, can do to help my customers, my airmen, my guardians, my service members, and their families accomplish their mission. And yes, in HR, my mission is to help them manage their career. I want to encourage the best of the best to stay in the Air Force. I want to encourage the best to join the Air Force and Space Force. And I need the right user experience. I need to show that we are modern and secure both at the same time. And we do that through our systems, not through an enterprise ICAM necessarily, but by modernizing how our systems are integrating with ICAM and making not just role-based, but data-based decisions on who can access what based on where they're coming from, what I know about them, along with a token that could be a CAC. I think any discussion of ICAM without the system user experience perspective is going to limit the value of what an enterprise capability can bring.
So you all have mentioned several pilots that you have going on, and to pick up on Jason's point, what has the user experience been like so far with those pilots? Have you seen improvements? You had, challenges? Are there areas that you want to explore going forward based on those specific lessons that you could share with us?
So I think our security is better. We have one cloud solution where we're now making decisions at the data level based on that user's identity. So I think are increasing our security level at the same time. This summer, we're rolling out a more comprehensive mobile suite of capabilities that will give airmen and guardians multi-factor access without a CAC, and not just limit that to BYOAD. And the reason really is our folks are making career and family decisions not at work on a government PC, not when they're constrained to another environment. They're making it with their families and with their friends. They're making those decisions on weekends. We need to empower them to make the best decision for them and the Air Force and Space Force. And I think we do that by system owners with mission owners and their authorizing officials making authentication decisions that help people not having cybersecurity come over the top and take us back to the binary world of it's either CAC or revert all the way back to username and password.
I'll just double down on that. I often hear that, I work with a lot of ICAM providers within the DoD, and I often hear that they need more support from the system owner community, right? So the Army's trying to roll out a BYOAD program. Great, they need to provide access through that program to apps that the Army might not even own, right? It might be the TSP app, it might be the DoD MyPay app, it might be something else, right? And those system owners all have to modernize the way they integrate with ICAM, again, going back to open standards, to say, okay, we will support or we can support things outside of the CAC. It can't all be on the ICAM director or the ICAM technical director. It has to also fall on the system owner. So I totally hear that, and that resonates across the DoD.
Got it. All right. Well, we will continue this conversation when we come back. We're going to take another short break. Again, my guests today are Sabrina Lee, the Director of DoD Programs at Okta, Christopher Joseph, the Acting Deputy Director in the Office of the Chief Information Officer for the Army's Cybersecurity Directorate, Jason Howe, A1 Chief Information Officer and Deputy Director for Plans and Integration at Headquarters U.S. Air Force, Drew Malloy, Technical Director of the Cybersecurity and Analytics Directorate at DISA. I'm your moderator, Justin Doubleday, for this panel discussion, Navigating the Future of Identity Management at DoD, sponsored by Okta on Federal News Network. We'll be right back.